Tito Mboweni has announced more bailouts for SAA and Eskom, but also some relief for South Africans as government won't increase any personal income or VAT tax, as Michael has just pointed out. Let's get some reaction now from tax specialist Busisiwe Mdletshe. She is from BTMT Capital. Ms. Mdletshe, thank you very much for waking up to talk to us. Overall assessment is that this was a tax-friendly budget, particularly for individual taxpayers. Do you agree on that score?
I do agree. You can tell that a lot of work has gone into it because he didn't want to upset taxpayers.
But what about the fuel levy, though?
The fuel levy, unfortunately, Michael has just mentioned that we do have this RAF liability. It's projected to be sitting at around 600 billion rands in 2021. So where is he going to get that money from? So hence the increase in fuel levy. And the increase is light. It's at an inflation rate. So it's something that we had expected. But when you look at individuals like personal income tax, as much as there was no change, but remember, in the past 2 years, he had increased those who earn more than 1.5 million rands, they're paying tax at about 45%. That's a lot. Those are people who could possibly emigrate, if he were to increase that personal income tax rate. Tax
collection, it's projected to suffer losses of around 60 billion rand. Where is the impact going to be felt the most with those shortfalls?
The challenge is because my expectations clearly were he was going to raise revenue. He needs to raise revenue, actually. By raising revenue, he will need to increase taxes because we cannot borrow anymore because we are over-indebted. So I had expected him to increase VAT maybe by 1 percentage point to about 16% because that was going to earn us an additional 45
But he says he doesn't know where you people got this idea that he was actually going to increase VAT.
That's the predictions, but I guess he lost an opportunity because if we were all preempting that, then it would have been sort of welcome, But again, I'm thinking because last year he didn't, I thought it's because it was the elections year. And this year nothing is happening, but again, next year is the local elections, so it means we cannot expect VAT to increase again. But another relief that he did was on transfer duties, to stimulate the property markets, to encourage people to buy properties by increasing that exemption up to R1 million. So at least if you buy a house of less than R1 million, you can only start worrying about the installments rather than the transfer duties.
I want to ask this of you, and I did promise you going into this interview that we're not going to talk politics, but it's really, it means no harm. The unions are describing this as not a budget, in particular COSATU. It's not a budget, they say. It is a statement to appease the investors. And I'm thinking here, Moody's. Do you view this as such?
The Moody's, it's an issue, this issue of credit ratings. We are almost there to the junk status, and it is the responsibility of the government to make sure that we shy away from that position, so we need to strengthen our policies. He touched on issues like wage bill, because when we thought of reducing costs, we thought maybe he could reduce the wage bill, but that could mean he has to retrench some of the employees, and this is not doable. But he mentioned the issue of strengthening controls, making sure that we reduce wasteful expenditure, because if you remember the auditors' general reports, he was saying we have more than 60 billion rands wasteful expenditure, irregular expenditure. So if we can tighten controls and make sure that we save on that, because he says he sees that we could save about 37 billion rands, so that could be diverted elsewhere.
Final question. I was quite happy when I read that during the press conference, he admitted that we are among the most highest taxed countries compared to our peers. Are we likely to see more relief in as far as in personal income taxes?
When it comes to personal, but I can start with corporate income tax because it's sitting at 28%, which is high by international standards. If you look at countries like China, at some stage they reduced their corporate income tax to 23%, which inevitably affects the individuals, because if companies could pay less tax, they will be encouraged to pay higher salaries. So even if personal income tax is high, at least it won't be felt. But he didn't touch on the brackets, for individuals. He didn't even touch that 45%. So I think for now, it's a relief to the taxpayers, because he even said there will be a relief of about 1.5 thousand rands per annum on those who earn, I think it's less than 200,000 rands per annum. So that's a relief. Yeah.
All right, Busisiwe Mdletshe, thank you very much for your time. A tax specialist and CEO of BTMT Capital. Sounding very optimistic. The people or the person I'm going to speak to next, I don't think they are as enthusiastic as you are about this budget. And I'm talking about Alex Mashilo here from the SACP. But